Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ricardo Questions, where I'm always questioning the narrative. So, I'm going to be reacting to a clip from Jordan Peterson where he breaks down how general cognitive ability works. Basically, how IQ predicts what kind of jobs you can realistically handle. This is a very uncomfortable topic, but extremely important, especially right now with AI and automation taking over jobs. This isn't just a person's opinion, it is actually backed up by real academic research. Let me show you. Now, as you can see here, these are three charts in one. And if you look at the big curve chart, this is basically Linda Gottfredson's paper. You can clearly see how different IQ levels line up with different types of jobs. The lower the IQ, the simpler and the more supervised the work tends to be. The higher up, the more complex jobs get. Now, the second chart is table 8 from a major literacy study. It shows how different literacy levels match up with IQ scores and real life skills. For example, at the lower levels, IQ roughly below 85 and 97, a big percentage of people struggle with everyday tasks like reading documents or doing basic math. As for the final document, which is a old military chart that shows the average scores by job type, even the army, which needs as many people as possible, use these type of standards. Definitely some very insightful information. Now, if you're trying to level up your career, or you're worried about the future of work, or you just want the truth instead of feel good nonsense, well, this video's for you. Let's dive in.
So IQ of 115, 110 to 115. So that's 85th to 73rd to 85th percentile. Copywriter, accountant, manager, sales analyst, general manager, purchasing agent, registered nurse, sales account executive. If you look at universities, the smartest people they're above this. Who are the smartest people at university? What do you think? Mathematicians, physicists and mathematicians, right. I could tell you who's on the other end, but I won't. Yeah, I'd like to though. Anyways, okay. Going down now 103 to 108 is slightly above average, right? 60th to 70th percentile. Store manager, bookkeeper, credit clerk, lab tester, general sales, telephone sales, accounting clerk, computer operator, customer service rep, technician, clerk, typist. So you see at this level, people have some technical skill and some ability to deal with complex things. Okay, that's dead average. 100 is average. Dispatcher in a general office, police patrol officer, receptionist, cashier, general clerical, inside sales clerk, meter reader, printer, teller, data entry, electrical helper. 95th to 98. Machinist, food department manager, quality control checker, security guard, unskilled labor, maintenance, arc welder, die setter, mechanic. Good IQ range for relatively qualified tradespeople. 87 to 93. Messenger, factory production worker, assembler, food service worker, nurse's aide, warehouseman, custodian, janitor, material handler, packer. Now, what you're seeing.
All right. So, as you can see here, he's showing you, this is definitely very raw information, by the way. So, very transparent. So as you can see here, it definitely explains why a lot of people grind and still struggle, while others seem to climb very easily, right? So as you can see here, it says that IQ from 110 to 115, that's basically the 73rd to 85 percentile. It covered jobs like copywriter, accountant, manager, sales, analyst, nurse, and purchasing agent. So these are like your solid middle to upper jobs that need some real thinking and learning. You know, this kind of information had me thinking about the occupation that I'm interested in, which is cybersecurity, which is um, pretty much requires you to always solve new problems and learn tools fast. So it's definitely insightful information. It can definitely give you a clear understanding of the level of IQ for your occupation if you don't know. So definitely very interesting. Now he does break down as well. He definitely does break down what is it? The 103 to 108 for store managers and bookkeepers and technicians and customer service and clerks. So at the average IQ around 100, are dispatchers, police officers, receptionists, cashiers, data entry, and then you have 87 and 95, which are machinists, mechanics, welders, security guards, and maintenance. So, and below that, it's even simpler repetitive work like factory assembly, food service, and janitor. So, very, very interesting information. So, let's continue on.
What you're starting to see is that as you move down the hierarchy, the jobs get simpler. They're more likely to be assigned by other people, or they're repetitive. Because what IQ predicts to some degree is how rapidly you can learn something, but once you've learned it, it doesn't predict necessarily how well you do at it. And so the more repetitive jobs people with lower IQs are more suited to more repetitive jobs. Under 87, is there something? Well, no. Right. That's a big problem. And it's something our society has not addressed at all. Jobs for people with IQs of less than 85 are very, very rare. So what the hell are those people supposed to do? It's like it's 15% of the population. What are they supposed to do? Well, we better figure it out, because one of the things that's happening too is that as the high IQ tech geeks get a hold of the world, the demand for cognitive power is increasing, not decreasing, right? You want to be a teller? Well, you know, those checkout machines, they're not so simple. You want to work at McDonald's? You think that's a simple job? You don't see robots working at McDonald's. And the reason for that is that what McDonald's workers do is too complex for robots to do. So this is a discussion that no one wants to have, but that's okay. It's still a problem, and it has to be dealt with. So the US government, I think I told you this at one point already, it's illegal to induct anyone into the US Army if they have an IQ of less than 83. Right? It's about 10% of the population. Because the US Army, and they've been doing IQ testing since IQ testing began, because they want everybody they can possibly get into the Army, because in peacetime, they use it as a way of moving people up the socioeconomic ladder, and in wartime, well, obviously, you need as many soldiers as you can get your hands on. And so you're not going to be any pickier than you have to be. So when the US Army says it's illegal to induct anybody into the armed forces if they have an IQ of less than 83, then you know that they've done it for absolute necessity, right? And when people have made a finding that contradicts what they want to hear and they're doing it out of absolute necessity, you can be reasonably true that it's one of those facts that just won't bloody well go away. And so you might think, well, if there's nothing for someone with an IQ of less than 83 to do in the Army, what makes you think that there's something that they can do in the general population? And then the issue is, you know, because the conservatives will say, well, they should just work harder. It's like, sorry, that ain't going to fly. And the liberals will say, well, there's no difference between people anyhow, and you can just train people to do everything. And that's wrong. So they're both wrong, and they're seriously wrong. And the fact that neither side of the political perspective will take a good, cold, hard look at this problem means that we're going to increasingly have a structural problem in our societies, because we're complexifying everything so rapidly that you can't find employment unless you're intelligent. You guys are really going to face this, you know. Lawyers are disappearing like mad.
Okay, let's talk about that. Definitely very interesting, very interesting. So as you can see the pattern, higher IQ handles more complex stuff, lower IQ does better with clear and repetitive tasks, and that makes sense, right? As IQ goes down, the jobs become simpler and more repetitive. And then Peterson definitely hits the hard part. People with below IQ of 85, which is about 15% of the population, there are almost no good jobs. Let me repeat myself. People with below of IQ of 85, which is about 15% of the population, there are almost no good jobs. And society has no real answer for it. So as technology advances, we're making everything more complex and not simpler. Even McDonald's jobs are too complex for robots right now. So definitely very transparent information here, I must say. So he also mentions that both political sides, you know, the conservatives and liberals, they're both wrong of how to approach the situation. Conservatives would say, just work harder, just work as hard as possible, pull yourself by your bootstraps, and don't worry, you're going to make it. Well, That's completely wrong. Liberals will say everyone is equal. Anybody can be trained for anything. We're all the same. That's also wrong. So, and the data definitely backs up what he backs up his claims. So, both both political sides don't really have a true solution to this problem. And I see this all the time through news segments and media outlets. So, and it's very concerning. It's definitely very concerning, especially especially looking at the job market. A lot of people are starting to realize that there's a demand for people who can learn quickly and handle complexity, and that's just only going up, right? So productivity keeps increasing and increasing, and you need to adapt to this. You need to learn, you need to adapt to this, and you need to adjust to this new normal. So, and also automation and AI are also coming for those repetitive white collar jobs as well. So anyway, so it's definitely a lot of interesting stuff here. So it makes me think about a lot of things. But let me just continue on.
And the reason for that is you can look it up online. Increasingly, you can do things yourself if you're smart. And so like the working class people have been wiped out pretty nicely over the last 30 years by automation and various other things. It's the low end of the white collar class that's coming up next. So I'm not saying that lawyers are in the low end, but low end lawyers are in the low end of the white collar class. So there's still going to be plenty of positions for people who are creative and fast on their feet and super smart. In fact, those people are going to have all the money, and that's already happening to a great degree. Because if you're smart and you can use a computer, you're so smart it's just absolutely unbelievable, right? And if you can't use a computer, and lots of people, and I don't mean, you can open Word. That isn't what I mean. I mean you can program, and if you can't program, well, you're right at the next end. So if you haven't got that with you, you're going to be left behind.
What's going to happen then when that happens, when you have...
Oh, a lot of them will take Demerol. That's what's happening in the United States. Yeah, it's an opiate. Yeah, so there's a massive drug problem emerging in...
Under 83 or whatever,
Yeah.
is about 15% of the population.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you, that is what's happening.
It seems like that percent of the population is going to increase.
Yes. Drugs. Yeah, drugs of abuse.
The population falling out of society.
Well, what is happening to a large degree is people drop out of the employment race. They get very depressed. They develop chronic pain problems, especially if they're men, because chronic pain and depression are very much the same thing. And then they subsist on opiates, which are subsidized by Medicaid in the US. I'm not kidding about this. This is exactly what's happening. What else is going to happen to people for whom there's nothing to do? They have a terrible time, especially if they're conscientious.
How large will that stratum of people grow?
That's a good question. The AI guys are pushing hard on this. Hey, what's the biggest employment category? Driver. Think about it. What's Tesla doing? What are all the AI guys working on as fast as they possibly can? Driverless cars. No problem, except that's the biggest employment category for men. So what are those guys going to do? Yeah, they're going to sit home and be miserable with their wives and take opiates because they have chronic pain problems. Right, nasty. And you might think, well, could they think up something else to do? Well, if you have an IQ of 83 or less, you're not going to be doing a lot of thinking about something else to do. That isn't how it works, because you're more of you're an act person, not a thinking person, roughly speaking. And so if you have a task at hand, especially if you're conscientious, you can diligently go about it. But, I've tried to train people with IQs of 80 and less to do what I would consider tasks that one of you could learn to do in 10 minutes and never make a mistake again. And it's like tens of hours with bare minimum mastery of the tasks. So, yeah, it's an ugly situation, no doubt about it.
Definitely an ugly situation for sure. I couldn't agree more. So let's talk about this. The military won't take anyone below of an 83 IQ. And they've been testing this forever. And that tells you how real this is. And also, we're heading towards this massive structural unemployment, especially for men. He mentions that lawyers are already getting replaced by tech, working class jobs being wiped out by automation, and now low-end white-collar jobs are next. Also, Peterson mentions truck driving. Now, truck driving happens to be the most common occupation for men in the United States. This is according to a 2020 Bureau of Labor Statistics analyst. 4% of all male full-time workers are truck drivers, making it the single largest job category for men by a significant margin. Now, with this big wave of AI and automation and this big push for driverless cars, what does this mean? This means that a lot of men are going to be out of work. Actually, let me show you a quick news segment discussing this. I thought it was very interesting.
Well, the next time you get a bag of Doritos, they may have to come to you by way of a truck with no driver. Pepsi is leaning into self-driving, launching a fleet of autonomous vehicles that will make deliveries in Texas, Arizona, and Arkansas. Esther Fung with the Wall Street Journal was the first person to report on Pepsi using these types of trucks. She's here with us live. Great to be with you. This was the largest commercial driverless freight. How did it go? Were there any issues or hiccups in the deployment?
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you for having me here. There wasn't any issues when I sat on the truck last week. At first, it felt a little freaky to see the steering wheel move on its own, but after a while, it felt like a regular ride. PepsiCo is now deploying dozens of these trucks in the 3 states that you've mentioned earlier, and they want to do more.
How much more? What other states are we talking about here?
They would like to do it in many more states. They wouldn't really give me any names or any numbers, but so far they've been pleased with the different routes that they already have. They say that there is more reliability and predictability from using these autonomous trucks, and the value of on-time pickups and on-time deliveries is real.
One of the biggest.
Definitely very interesting. So, definitely very interesting. Very interesting. There's a lot of things going on right now, in society and the job market. So, as for my closing thoughts, I understand this is very tough to hear. This is a very uncomfortable topic, understandably so. But ignoring the reality doesn't make it go away. Okay? Let me repeat myself. Ignoring the reality doesn't make it go away. For those of us that happen to be in the middle or climbing that corporate ladder, keep building those skills, especially practical and hands-on ones, because there's still a huge demand for people who can think on their feet and who can solve problems. But as a society, we need to start asking better questions about what happens to people who fall through the cracks instead of pretending that differences don't exist. Anyway, that's the end of the video. What do you guys think? Is IQ destiny? Can effort and right training change the game? Drop your thoughts below, especially if you're in tech or in trades or transitioning careers. I would definitely like to hear your input. Anyway, stay questioning, take care, and good luck out there.